Hello everyone. Over the past few days, our team has received quite a few comments and emails from you suggesting that we look into the case of Nguyen Xuan Dat. And as of now, Vietnam's authorities have released their conclusions on this case, while many news outlets have already reported almost everything they could about the shocking information that has been circulating in recent days. So in this video, Vietnamese Case Files won't go too deep into the manhunt for the culprit or the gruesome details which we also believe shouldn't be over-amplified in the media. Instead, we'll focus on clarifying the true face of Doan Van Sung before and after the crime, as well as the troubling signs that were inadvertently overlooked since the beginning of this year. Also, are you curious how similar cases have been handled in other countries? Stay with us until the end to hear about another story that's no less chilling. We'd also like to note that all content in today's video has been researched and compiled by our team from multiple information sources. If there are any mistakes or points that need correction, please leave a comment below so we can update and revise accordingly. And if you're interested in mysterious cases within Vietnamese communities around the world, don't forget to like the video, share it, and follow the channel so you won't miss our upcoming episodes. Now, let's get into today's story. In late January 2025, residents living near the former headquarters of Market Management Team No. 4 in Hu Lung Town, Long Son, began noticing a strange, foul stench coming from the partially abandoned building. Mr. Hiu, a resident living right next to the site, said that shortly after the Lunar New Year in early 2025, the unusual odor appeared, and flies became noticeably more frequent. At first, people assumed it was just a dead animal or garbage somewhere nearby, so the matter passed without anyone reporting it to the authorities. Some residents' dogs even dragged home strange bone fragments on multiple occasions, but no one could identify where they came from, and eventually people brushed it off. No one imagined that this was the very first signal of a brutal homicide being concealed behind that silent gate. A few months later, even more disturbing signs began surfacing online. In early July 2025, a short video began circulating on social media, showing horrifying violence that many initially thought could only exist in a horror film. The video, filmed inside an enclosed room, was blurry, but it still appeared to show an extremely brutal killing. The clip also showed the suspect carrying out savage actions on the victim's body, so bloody and terrifying it was hard to believe. Online viewers were stunned, asking whether this was a sick movie clip or evidence of a real murder. The video was taken down not long after it appeared, but it was enough to fuel public anxiety for quite some time. People shared screenshots and debated it intensely, creating a chilling atmosphere across many online forums. Then, in mid-November 2025, the internet buzzed again when an 88-page PDF was suddenly leaked and quietly shared inside private social media groups. The document described, in detail, the progression of a brutal homicide, compiling a large amount of evidence and related images and, most notably, strongly implying the killer's identity. The pages revealed the entire process, from preparation to execution to how the perpetrator attempted to erase traces and dispose of the body. What's more, the anonymous authors claimed they had used open source intelligence (OSINT) methods to identify the victim's name, the killer's identity, and the location where the murder took place. This bombshell sent social media into a frenzy, and a case that had simmered for months suddenly erupted again. Under mounting public pressure, the police began to step in. Through its cyber monitoring work, the Lang Son Provincial Police also became aware that an 88-page document containing extremely violent content was being secretly circulated online, fueling public anxiety. On November 27th, the Long Son Police sent an official request asking Tien Hung Commune Police in Hung Yen Province to verify the identity of a person named Nguyen Xuan Dat, believed to be the victim mentioned in the document. Around the same time, Tien Hung Commune Police issued an urgent public warning about a harmful document containing violence-inciting content that was being illegally distributed online, advising residents not to share it under any circumstances if they received it, and to delete it immediately to avoid legal consequences. A cascade of unsettling signs, from the stench of death near the suspected scene, to gruesome videos mysteriously appearing online, to a thick dossier exposing the crime, raised a string of questions. Who was the killer behind those barbaric images? Who was the unfortunate victim? And why did the body disappear so mysteriously? And most of all, how could such a horrific crime remain in the shadows for so many months? The answers would gradually come into focus as investigators stepped in and followed each shocking lead. As soon as they received the information, the Lang Son Provincial Police assessed that this could be an especially serious homicide, brutal in nature and sophisticated in how the traces were concealed. The provincial police leadership directed the Criminal Investigation Division to work with relevant units to urgently verify and clarify what was true. The suspected crime scene was quickly cordoned off. The former headquarters of Market Management Team Number 4 in Hulung District, the same place whose images and descriptions closely matched what appeared in both the video and the leaked material. The number one suspect also emerged from what the 88-page document described, a middle-aged man named Doan Van Song, who had previously worked at that very office. Born in 1968, Song was a middle-aged man from Lang Son with a seemingly clean background on the surface. He studied at the University of Commerce, now Vietnam University of Commerce, between 1985 and 1989. After graduation, he gradually rose to become deputy head of Market Management Team Number 4 under the Lang Son Provincial Market Management Subdepartment, a functional unit tasked with market regulation in the border region. Sang's work unit was responsible for Hulung District, and he also oversaw both the former headquarters in Hulung Town, the suspected crime scene, and the newer headquarters after the relocation. Sang was described as a veteran officer who had spent decades in market management, so he knew the local terrain well and had broad connections with small traders and border merchants. He lived on Nguyen Phi Khan Street, Tam Thon Ward, Lang Son City. Song's family was relatively well off, with a solid house in town. His wife worked at Lang Son Provincial Television, and the couple had 2 children who were already grown. Neighbors said Sang was outgoing and had never been involved in any scandals. In many people's eyes, he was a quiet official who had retired or was close to retiring, sometimes seen gardening or doing morning exercise. In terms of criminal history, before this case, Sang had never had any prior convictions or record of wrongdoing. He was even known for being very active in family and community affairs, and was elected chairman of the Doan Clan Association in Lang Son, the head role of the Doan family line in Lang Son, in November 2025. In the clan's group, he also regularly shared content about moral principles with relatives. For instance, in November 2018, when news broke about a 17-year-old suspect who killed a neighbor in Hung Yen, Sang reshared the article with the remark, "Another stain," as a way of expressing his outrage at what he saw as moral decline in society. However, after he was arrested, some claims from online communities allege that Sang had abused animals and shared videos in groups centered on violent interests, signs that hinted at a hidden cruelty behind the image of this seemingly respectable man. At the same time, as soon as Sang became a suspect, his workplace turned into the focus of public attention because everything from the room's layout and wall paint to the interior furnishings closely matched the settings seen in the gruesome video that had circulated earlier. People also determined that the murder had actually taken place in a room in the back building near the kitchen and restroom. Notably, the former headquarters of Market Management Team Number 4 was located right next to a densely populated residential area, about 100 meters from Churmet on Chi Lung Street, the old Hulung Township. The compound was surrounded by a brick wall topped with barbed wire. The main gate was a locked iron door. Inside, the headquarters covered roughly 500 square meters, consisting of 6 offices, a kitchen, a confiscated goods storage room, and 2 restrooms. Market Management Team Number 4 began gradually moving operations to a new location in 2024 and completed the relocation in July 2025. In early 2025, only a handful of staff occasionally stopped by the old headquarters, and around Lunar New Year, almost no one was working there at all. This meant the killer could act without being noticed if they knew the operating schedule of the place well. And those details fit Doan Van Song all too well, a long-serving deputy team head who had the keys and knew exactly who was on duty during the Lunar New Year holiday. Even more chilling, after carrying out the killing, Doan Van Song continued working and living as usual, showing no obvious signs of anything abnormal. In March 2025, Mr. Song proactively filed for early retirement under the state's administrative streamlining policy. By July 2025, when rumors began spreading through communities and online sleuths were actively digging, Doan von Song may have already had his name mentioned somewhere. But instead of staying silent and acting as if it had nothing to do with him, the father and son made a move that effectively outed themselves. Specifically, the father wrote in a group, "I'm the executioner. If you can catch me, I'll boom for you all. You're all executioners too because you want a few more people to go so you can celebrate, right? I've lived 60 years already. I'm not afraid anymore." After that, he told curious people he wrote it because he had been tagged into the group. But that explanation was immediately exposed as nothing more than a lie. Someone captured screenshots showing that Mr. Sang's interaction history in that group had existed for a long time. And while the father was that heated, his son was no less reckless. The son, named Chung, account Chung Do, born in 2002 and said to be serving in the military, posted a photo of dog meat with shrimp paste and wrote, "It's only a few bites of our own kind." And you're all freaking out. However, just 1 hour later, the two of them deleted every trace of those statuses, suggesting they had begun to feel the heat from the online public at that point. But one hand can't clap. In a case as horrifying as this, we also have to talk about the role of the person referred to as the victim. Nguyen Xuan Dat was born in 1989 from Ho Trung Tu Hamlet, Tien Hung Commune, Hun Yen Province. After receiving the verification request from Lang Son Provincial Police, Hun Yen Police confirmed that there was indeed a resident named Nguyen Xuan Dat, born in 1989. However, Dat's biological mother, Nguyen Tay Mien, said in shock that her son had left home and disappeared for the past 10 years, since after his father passed away around 2015. Since then, Dat had not contacted the family, and no one knew where he went or what he did. Local authorities also lost track of the young man for an entire decade. Information about Nguyen Xuan Dat did not even appear in any official missing person file, because the family believed he had left of his own accord and did not report it. The victim's drifting life was only truly brought to light when online sleuths surfaced his name in the 88-page document and the police began verifying it. To confirm his identity, officers went directly to Tien Hung to meet the victim's relatives. It was a modest single-story home where, for years, only his mother remained without her son. Details from the family further confirmed that Nguyen Xuan Dat had been taken to Hanoi by relatives and raised there from a young age, and after reaching adulthood, he returned to his hometown in Hung Yen for a period to work as a factory laborer. However, after the shock of losing his father, Dat showed signs of psychological instability and deep discouragement. He left home without telling his mother and then vanished without a trace. It is possible that those years of drifting, without family supervision, pushed Dat into complicated online connections. The background of the victim, Nguyen Xuan Dat, contains many dark corners. 36 years old, male with no stable occupation at the time he was killed. Dat lived reclusively, kept little contact with relatives, and seemed more absorbed in the virtual world than real life. Investigative information indicates he was highly active on social media and participated in several private groups featuring unusual content. According to the suspect's initial statement, around 2020, Sang met Dat through social media, possibly via a group centered on shared deviant interests. People who interacted with Dat online described him as somewhat extreme, thrill-seeking, and prone to exchanging bizarre ideas. This may have been the common ground that made Dat and Sang bond quickly, despite a significant age gap. Dat was 36, while Sang was 57. The two often chatted online about perverse and unusually violent content. Some unverified sources have even speculated that Dat and Sang had an intimate same-sex relationship and shared certain strange interests. However, investigators have not confirmed that element. They have only emphasized that the two men's deviant, perverse exchanges were the key link that led to the tragedy. On January 25th, 2025, Nguyen Xuan Dat boarded a fateful trip to Lang Son after receiving a call from Sang. Under the plan they agreed on, Dat would meet Sang at the former headquarters of Market Management Team Number 4. No one else knew Dat was going to Lang Son. Later, a worker friend who had once shared a rented room with him in Hung Yen recalled that Dat hinted he was about to try something new and seemed both excited and nervous, but he did not say where he was going. Tragically, that final experience turned out to be a brutal murder. What stands out here is that Dat had, in a sense, voluntarily put his own head in the noose, choosing that ending with eagerness and obsession. At first, the online community could hardly believe it. Then came confusion. If everything was real, was Dat truly a victim, or also a different kind of perpetrator cruel to his own life? Legally, there is no clear answer to that question. What is known is that on November 28, 2025, the Investigation Police Agency of Long Son Provincial Police issued a decision to open a criminal case. On November 29, 2025, it issued a decision to prosecute the accused and an arrest warrant for Doan Van Sang. That same day, the People's Procuracy of Long Son Province approved those decisions. By the afternoon of December 3rd, Doan Van Sang was officially placed in pre-trial detention for investigation. Around the same time, police searched Sang's residence and workplace and used a vacuum truck to pump out septic tanks to look for evidence around the former headquarters of Market Management Team Number 4. According to legal experts, Doan Van Sang was prosecuted for murder under Clause 1, Article 123 of Vietnam's 2015 Penal Code. Clause 1 covers murders with especially aggravating factors, such as acting in an exceptionally brutal manner, acting from despicable motives, or with a gangster-like nature, and carries a sentencing range of 12 to 20 years in prison, life imprisonment, or the death penalty. In this case, Sang's actions clearly fall under exceptionally brutal because they involve not only taking a life, but also acts violating the body afterward, along with a despicable motive, killing for a sick, perverse thrill. Therefore, the maximum penalty, the death penalty, is a punishment Sang could be facing. Moreover, beyond that charge, investigators could also consider prosecuting Sang for desecration of a corpse, graves, or remains under Article 319 of the Penal Code, with a maximum penalty of 5 to 7 years in prison, based on what he did after the victim was killed. In addition, investigators need to clarify whether the victim brought property such as cash, a watch, or a phone. If after killing the victim, the suspect took those belongings, Sang could also face an additional charge of robbery under Article 168 of the Penal Code. The value of the property would determine the sentencing bracket. Notably, this case is also considered the first in Vietnam's criminal history to resemble a killer taking the life of a willing victim, which is why public reaction has been even more confused and intense. Many people immediately recall the Armin Meiwes case in Germany in 2001. Back then, in the small town of Wustefeld, a man named Armin Meiwes posted on an online forum called Cannibal Cafe, a dark corner of the internet where people with deeply disturbing, deviant interests gathered. In his post, he claimed he was looking for a healthy person who would voluntarily offer himself. Shockingly, that insane invitation was answered almost immediately. Another man, Bernd Jürgen Brandis, an IT manager, 43 years old, agreed to take part. To be clear, he was not lured and he was not forced. Brandis was the one who actively stated, "I want to offer myself." On March 9th, 2001, they met at Meiwes' home. A video camera had been set up in advance. After that, the camera captured the details of a brutal ritual. For hours, Meiwes ate as if what lay before him were a lavish buffet. Police only discovered the case when Meiwes posted again looking for a new victim. The data on his computer, a videotape more than 2 hours long, and the executioner's explicit confession together left no room for doubt. But as with Vietnam today, the case raised a horrifying question for German society at the time. If the victim consented to be killed, was the perpetrator still guilty of a crime? Confused at first, the German court initially sentenced Meiwes to 8.5 years in prison for killing on request. But after reviewing the footage and judging the act brutal and inhuman, the sentence was increased to life imprisonment. Notably, while in prison, Meiwes became a vegetarian and attended prison religious services very regularly. At present, he has been attempting to apply for clemency on the grounds that he has served 15 years under the relevant eligibility condition. However, he has been rejected twice. It is important to note that both German law and German society tend to be more open than Vietnam to issues like euthanasia or a person's right to decide about their own life. Even so, they still had to judge Mayweather's conduct as among the most serious. That is why this could be a case study for Vietnam to consider when handling this truly one-of-a-kind case. Another highly notable detail here is the role played by the anonymous group of online detectives in bringing the case to light. It was this OSINT community online that spent months collecting evidence, analyzing it, and producing an 88-page, later 110-page document that precisely identified the perpetrator, the victim, and the sequence of events with striking accuracy. This sparked heated debate. Did the main credit for cracking the case belong to that passionate online group? Some argued that thanks to them, the perpetrator could not get away. Others worried that such spontaneous efforts carry serious legal and ethical risks. Either way, the case marked an unprecedented collaboration between the power of online communities and public authorities in bringing a killer into the light. But the downside was that the horrific information also spread widely, leading many curious people to search for it despite repeated warnings. Looking more broadly, the Doan Van Sang case delivers many costly, sobering lessons to society. First, it warns us about the dark side of social media and the internet. The online world is not only full of financial scams, abuse, and defamation, it can also nurture extreme violent tendencies. People like Sang or Dot, if they had not wandered into dark forums, might never have joined hands to create this tragedy. Therefore, each person must stay alert to abnormal groups and harmful online content. Parents also need to supervise and guide their children, keeping them away from the internet's gray zones. Second, the case shows the importance of reporting in time. If, from the beginning of the year, when residents noticed a strange stench of death, when dogs dragged home unfamiliar bones, someone had reported it and police had checked earlier, the scene might have been discovered sooner and the perpetrator likely could not have remained at large for so long. This reminds the community, when you notice something unusual, report it immediately. Don't be embarrassed or dismiss it, because there may be an unforgivable crime behind it. Finally, the Doan Van Sang case underscores that the value of human life must be upheld and protected more than ever. A person like Nguyen Xuan Dat, essentially an ordinary individual, even if he may have gone astray, lost his life tragically because of a depraved thrill shared by himself and another. The law will punish the perpetrator, but the family's loss and society's trauma will take a long time to fade. Hopefully, from this tragedy, each of us and the authorities will draw deep lessons about managing online spaces, moral education, and early identification of deviant behaviors so that a similar crime never happens again, because community safety and basic human dignity must always come first in the real world as well as the virtual one. And you, what do you think after learning about this shocking case? Leave your thoughts in the comments so we can discuss it together. And don't forget to like and follow Vietnamese Case Files, where gripping true crime stories are explored every day. For now, goodbye and see you again at this time tomorrow.